The aura appeared suddenly. A soft glow lit up above people's heads. For some it was bright and warm. For others it was dim and ragged. Scientists quickly came up with an explanation. A visualization of luck. A probability trace indicating how favorable the world was to a person. At first, it seemed like a beautiful miracle. People took photos of each other, compared shades, and joked. But it soon became clear, luck wasn't just light. It was a new currency. A bright aura signified success. Such people were more likely to be lucky. They won, avoided accidents, and found the right people. They were invited first, listened to more attentively, and their mistakes were forgiven. A dim aura made a person invisible. They were interrupted, pushed aside, and blamed for their failures. No one wanted to stand next to those whose luck had almost faded. People began choosing friends, partners, and even neighbors not by looking at their eyes, but by the glow above their heads. Business responded instantly. Companies hired only those with a bright aura. Casinos paid less to those with a strong aura. They were already lucky. Special zones for the lucky appeared. Restaurants, elevators, queues. It was said to be logical, to enhance those who produced results. But no one asked where luck came from and where it disappeared. For the first time, society was divided not by money or power, but by the favor of chance. Very quickly, people noticed something else: luck flows. If you spend enough time near a bright aura, your own began to strengthen. But for the lucky, on the contrary, it dimmed. This discovery changed everything. People stopped simply admiring luck. They began to hunt it. Being around it became profitable. Being too lucky was dangerous. Light ceased to be a blessing and became a target. Luck companions appeared. They deliberately surrounded the bright people, following them everywhere. Formally, they were friends, partners, assistants. In reality, they were parasites. The longer the proximity lasted, the weaker the source became. Some lucky ones began to hide. They wore hoods, left at night, avoided crowds. They were accused of selfishness. After all, luck, as they now said, should serve society. Over time, hunting ceased to be a metaphor. The lucky ones began to be held by force. They were housed in auspicious houses, supposedly for protection. In reality, it was so that others could be nearby and feed off. Bright auras faded faster than anyone expected. People who had only yesterday been the favorites of fate became empty and broken. But society considered this a fair exchange. One strong stroke of luck for the benefit of many mediocre ones. A black market in luck emerged. Intermediaries offered meetings with pure sources, rare people whose auras restored themselves. An hour with such a person was worth more than a month's salary. The rich bought luck in advance, before deals, operations, elections. Fate became a service. Those without money made do with the scraps. Places where the aura had almost burned out, but still flickered. The protagonist never considered himself special. His aura was calm, steady, without flare-ups. But luck around him behaved strangely. It didn't flow, didn't disappear. People nearby felt relieved, but he didn't lose his light. It was impossible to squeeze it out. He became a rarity, something the system didn't understand, and therefore a threat. Algorithms began tracking his movements, even though he was technically ordinary. He realized the reason by chance. His luck wasn't tied to events. It was born of choice. Every time he helped without expecting any benefit, his aura grew stronger. When he shared his light consciously and not out of fear, it didn't dim. The system, however, rewarded chance, not responsibility. It could redistribute luck, but not create it. And so, hunting was pointless. When he told others about this, they didn't understand. People had forgotten how to believe that luck could depend on them. It was much easier to seek the source and take away the light. His words sounded dangerous. If luck could be created, then the entire hunting system was a lie. He was declared a disinformationist. And the more people tried to take away his light, the brighter it became. The system didn't fail right away. First, forecasts began to disappear. Where luck had once been guaranteed, failures occurred. People with artificially enhanced auras suffered setbacks, while those considered hopeless suddenly emerged unscathed from the chaos. The algorithms couldn't understand what was happening. Luck was no longer subject to redistribution. It became unstable, unpredictable, as if returning to its true state, freedom. People began to fear bright light. A strong aura attracted attention, envy, and violence. Many deliberately dimmed their glow, trying to appear ordinary. A strange new fashion emerged, to be invisible. Luck was no longer a source of pride. It became a risk. For the first time in a long time, people wondered, is it worth standing out at all if it can lead to a midnight attack? The black market collapsed the fastest. Sources burned out, deals stopped working. People accustomed to buying their fates were left with nothing. For the first time, money couldn't guarantee an outcome. This caused panic. Those who had built their power on luck began to lose ground. A world founded on someone else's light proved fragile. And the more people tried to hold on to it by force, the faster it crumbled. They tried to isolate the protagonist. They surrounded him, locked him in, placed him in neutral zones. But luck behaved differently around him. It stopped flowing and began to return to people. Those who stayed close long enough felt the light within them rekindle, slowly, dimly, but steadily. This was more dangerous than any rebellion, because it required no violence. People began to experiment. They helped each other without calculation, made risky decisions, took responsibility for failures. And with each choice, the aura grew denser. Not brighter, but deeper. Luck ceased to be a flash and became a state. The hunt lost its meaning. It was impossible to steal what is born within. The hunters were left without a goal. Bright auras no longer guaranteed an outcome, and dim ones ceased to be a death sentence. The pursuit of light turned into chaos. People grabbed those who no longer radiated anything, and were left with nothing. Fear gave way to anger, anger to confusion. For the first time, society was confronted with the fact that luck couldn't be taken away by force if it was no longer an external resource. Cities began to change. Ratings were removed, scanners were turned off. Without numbers and lights overhead, people looked each other in the face for the first time. It was awkward, scary, unfamiliar. Decisions again required thinking, not calculating probabilities. Mistakes returned, but with them came responsibility. Luck no longer promised a result, it only offered a chance. Gradually, it became clear, luck intensifies where there is choice, where a person acts knowing they can lose. Without guarantees, without hints, it appeared not above the head, but within, as a feeling of having taken the right step, not of a winning outcome. The world became slower, but more stable, because it was no longer built on someone else's light. The protagonist disappeared from the news. They stopped looking for him. He was no longer a source or a threat. People said they sometimes saw him in the crowd, ordinary, without his glow. But around him, decisions were easier, and fear retreated. Perhaps he didn't take away luck. Perhaps he simply reminded them where it had always been. When luck ceased to be visible, the hunt ended. People no longer chased the light. They learned to light it themselves. The world became less predictable, but more honest. And in this new order, the rarest luck was not winning, but having the courage to move forward, unsure whether you'll get lucky. The new generation grew up without knowledge of auras. They were told of it as a myth, a strange era where the light overhead decided fate. The children didn't believe that luck had once been hunted. For them, luck was something personal, almost intimate. It couldn't be shown, measured, or taken away, only felt. Sometimes, in the rarest of moments, people said they saw a faint glow, not overhead, but between people, in gestures, in trust, in shared risk. It would flicker for a second and vanish. And those who noticed it understood, luck still exists. It just no longer belongs to anyone individually. The world never became fair, but it ceased to be a hunting ground. People no longer tracked the light. They learned to be its source. And perhaps that was where true luck lay. Not in winning, not in guarantees, but in the freedom to move forward without fear that someone would come for your light. Sometimes it seemed to people that the world had become colder without its radiance. There were no more instant miracles, easy victories, or the feeling of being chosen. But in its place came something else, a sense of participation. Every step carried weight. Every decision left a mark. Luck no longer exempted one from consequences. And that's precisely why life began to feel real, not won by chance. Old records preserved images of people with bright auras. They studied them, analyzed them, trying to understand where the mistake had occurred. But the answer was simple. Luck had been turned into a commodity. When it could be seen, it could be taken away. When it could be measured, it ceased to be felt. History ended not in catastrophe, but in the quiet abandonment of a comfortable illusion. They say that sometimes luck does appear, for a moment, in moments of honest choice, in actions without guarantees, in the decision to move forward, even if no one promised light. And if you look closely, you can understand, it never disappeared. It simply ceased to be visible to those who wanted to possess it, not live it.